Welcome to The Secrets of Success. By following the proven techniques of the guests who appear on this series, you'll learn that even successful people run into detours and failures, and how you can apply their success techniques to change your life.
You're now listening to the most unique show on radio, the show dedicated to making you a success. Ready to start your journey to success? Simon T. Bailey has some advice. Simon, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. Good to be with you.
Now, I was kidding you before, but so we get it official. Just like Stephen A. Smith, you're Simon T. Bailey. We're going to get the T in there. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. T for terrific.
I like that. I like that. Simon, you've written a book, Resilience at Work. How would you define the term resilience?
I'm so glad you asked that question, Bill. We surveyed 1,000 working Americans asking that question, how do they define brilliance? Working Americans told us they define it as perseverance, grit, and problem solving. So it's this ability to bounce back up and to find the chutzpah, that inner strength to keep going.
That sounds like your Nick book, The Chutzpah to Keep Going. I think we have the title already. Now, I said to you before the show, we've been doing the show for over 35 years, and I think this is the first time anyone keyed on the word resilience, or at least I don't remember it. So this should be very interesting. In your book, you say that resilience decreases stress, reduces burnout, and increases psychological capital. Wow, I want to buy some of that. I'd send you a check right away for it. If this was late night TV for $99.99, just send this check and you'll get it. But tell us how that works.
So think about the first time you learned how to ride a bike. And let's say you started riding the bike and you fell off the bike, but you dusted yourself off and you got back on the bike and you tried it again. That's an example of resilience. I'll give you another one. When I first went to get my driver's license, I grew up in Buffalo, New York, and I failed the driver's license exam because I didn't know how to parallel park. So what did my father do? We practiced parallel parking bright and early on a Saturday morning. And eventually, after the third try, I got my driver's license. So resilience is something happens. How do I respond? Get back up, note to self, keep going.
I wanted you to know, and I agree with you, that is the hardest thing. I did okay on it on my driver's test I don't even want to say a couple of decades ago, maybe 50, 60 years ago when I took it. But now what do? I just pull into those spaces where you drive right in. Unless I really have to do the backup parallel parking, I don't even try it because I know I'm going to hear crunch in the back, despite the fact that the car warns me, beep, 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 you're getting close, all that. So you use the term in your book, it's the ability to pop back up, and I like that. And that would be the quick summary of it. Am I correct?
Yes, sir.
Now, this sounds like something we all want because it's doing all these good things for us and it's going to help us. So how do we build it up? If you were writing a book about muscles, you would be telling us, I guess, go to the gym or do bench presses or something. What are some ways we can start to look at our resilience?
I would say carve out 15 minutes a day and take the 15 minutes and chunk it down into 3 5-minute segments. The first 5 minutes, meditate, breathe, do something just to enter into a calm space. The second 5 minutes, read or listen to something that inspires you. Because if you go to dictionary.com and you type in the word inspire, one of the entries that would pop up would say to breathe life into. So before you can give life, you got to breathe life into yourself. And then that third 5 minutes is stretch and get aligned with the day. Do something from a physical standpoint to align your head, your heart, and your hands. 15 minutes a day, preferably at the beginning of the day, because how you start the day determines the day.
So it's meditate?
Meditate.
And I forgot the middle one, to be honest.
Read or listen to something that inspires you.
Oh, I like that. And actually, that's something I always try to do, because even if it's just a saying, or as a couple of them I copied from your book, it kind of gets me going and gives me the impetus for the day, like the football teams that have the shirt that says, all gas, no brake, or whatever the saying of the season is, etc. Now, so we just have to do that in the morning. before as we
Every
get
day.
every day
It's
though.
a habit. Every day, 15 minutes. It compounds over time and it builds that resilience from within.
I know in your book you talk a lot about surfing, and that's a sport you like and enjoy, and tie it into your book. And you use the expression, you can't stop the waves from coming, but you can learn to surf. Can you expound on that a little bit?
Yeah, so one of the things we realize in an uncertain economy, you get knocked off your surfboard, but it's your resilience that gets you back on the surfboard because number one, you reframe what just happened. Number two, you reset your mindset. You start to think differently. You start to ask questions. You start to reflect. What did I learn? And then you say, you know what? I'm going to try it again for who I become in the process. So resilience is something that we always do. I'm just putting a framework on it to say you have it within you to keep going no matter what's happened to you.
And, hearing it, and by the way, for our listeners, I'm going to say, I'm going to guess the book is about 115 pages, maybe 140, something like that.
Yes.
It's a relatively short book, which I think a lot of us like. I like that because you get to the point. You don't go around it and beat around it. And that's what we want to know. We're looking for success. We don't need thousands of pages, etc. We want to get right to it. You mentioned that this helps us discover wisdom that's lying dormant. And I said to you before the show, that sounds like one of those sayings that it's like, ooh, that's the key to this. That's why we took this class or came to this seminar. How do we tap into that, and what do you mean by that?
So if we look at our life, anytime we've had a problem or a situation that we couldn't solve, if we go back into the well of our soul, at some point, a mentor, a friend, a family member said something to us that was a nugget of wisdom. And just when you face that life moment, you say, wait a minute, I remember my uncle, my father, my mother said this. So now you share. I'll give you a prime example. I have children that have graduated from college. And something that I've told them that my father told me, the best hand that will feed you is the one at the end of your wrist. Now, when my father said it, Bill, I didn't understand it until I had children of my own. And when I realized I could no longer be a human ATM machine for them, they needed to get out and work. And I shared that wisdom with them that was passed on to me.
It's funny, as you said that, I thought of something, and this was said to me, I'm going to go back, it has to be 50 plus years ago. But a friend of one of my relatives pulled up his car in the driveway, and we were talking, and he goes, you talk so much, you should be a lawyer. And I just remembered this a few weeks ago, and I started saying it to my wife. And I looked back on my life, and my career was, I went to school, I was a teacher, a lawyer, and a radio host. All three careers involved a lot of talking, and they're always thought of that way, in kidding. But little did that man know, because he did help me to focus. I was at that point in life when, where do you want to be? I don't know, an Indian, a cowboy, a policeman, a fireman. You're just mixed up, and you hope for some guidance, or maybe you get pushed down one road or the other. And when he said that, I said, okay, let's kind of aim for that for now and see what happens. And probably it was a throwaway statement. He had no idea what he was going to do to my career, but he had a big role in it.
But think about it, Bill. You access wisdom in each of those roles, and there are things that you know about what you did that are not necessarily written down. They're second nature. You just know.
Oh, no, exactly. And but just as you said it was so true. Now, the book is written as a fable, and I think you have 4 characters in it. Hurry, worry, ready, and steady. Why that, and why those names?
Number one, I wanted it to be accessible through storytelling. As you've often heard, facts tells, but stories really connect. So I wanted to introduce people to a simple way to think about these personality archetypes. Are you in a hurry? Do you worry sometimes? Are you ready? And do you stay steady no matter what?
Oh, they're good. And I'm the worrier. I could find something to worry about. It might rain 9 days from now, so I better carry my umbrella with me today just in case it rains 7 days from now, which makes no sense. But that's me. And I gather from the book that you're a surfer because you also tie it into the surfing world.
So believe it or not, I'm not a surfer, but where the idea was born, I was in San Diego, California on a beach, and I saw some surfers coming out of the ocean, and I ran over to them and I said, "Hey, what's the key to surfing?" And they said, "The moment you hit a wave, you got to pop back up." And Bill, when they said it, the light bulb went off in my head. You got to pop back up. I said, "That's resilience." So that's where the idea was really born.
Did you get out there and surf, though? Did you actually do it?
You know what? Confession, Bill, I literally just learned to swim last year, and I'm over 50.
No, congratulations. The way you wrote the book, it sounded like someone who really loves, and I often think of surfers as those kind of people who really love it. They get up early in the morning. They'll go out in cold weather. It's like a unique fraternity that they have, or sorority of people who just enjoy surfing and doing what they do. Simon, before we go ahead, I'd like to take a brief break and let our audience know, if you're just tuning in, you're listening to The Secrets of Success on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC. I'm your host, Bill Horan. Our guest today is Simon T. for Terrific Bailey. His book is Resilience at Work, and we're going to ask him, Simon, can you tell us, is there a website where we can learn more?
Yes, simontbailey.com.
And I think we're kidding about T being for terrific, or are we?
No, it actually stands for Theophilus, so it's Greek.
Oh, of course. Okay. I thought you were going to give me a nice Tom or Ted or something like that, but Theophilus. Okay. I should have stopped while I was ahead. All right. Now, you mentioned in the book that we're all afraid of change, and definitely that's something that bothers me. I'm that person who I'm not into change. And then you put after it that the next wave could topple us. And I thought there's really two parts to that. First, I read it as one statement, but we just got through a pandemic. It had nothing to do with anything I did or you did or most people in the world, but that next wave, the wave of the pandemic, or a hurricane tomorrow, or even a strong storm, or it could be even kind of a weak storm, but if it's the tree near our house that falls, it could topple us, to use your expression. Is there a way we can make ourselves, I'm going to use your word, a little more resilient to that?
Yes. So it starts with what happened and what is the story or narrative that I'm going to tell myself about what happened. And it's in that decision that it impacts your belief, your behavior, and your action. Some people will say, you know what, this has happened, and here's how I'm going to respond. I'm going to help someone. I'm not going to wallow in it. Or, you know what, I'm going to reflect on it. I'm going to memorialize it. And then I'm going to figure out the next step. Everyone is wired differently, but it's all built in the story that we tell ourselves that allows us to move forward or to stay stuck.
I love what you just said, because I told you my bad points about being the worrier and the person who will think of the rain 7 days from now. But also I try to see the good side of each story. Like if this happened, well, it's good I tasted the bad food first, because now I know not to eat that, or it's spoiled or something, and I'll go to the good side of the table. I've learned from that, in other words. And obviously that's so true. If we can see the positive side of it, or the better side. And with everything, if the tree fell on our house, it missed us. And not that we want that damage, but I'm alive, and at least I can handle the situation. And maybe some other people weren't as lucky as I was. You mentioned 3 questions that we should ask ourselves. I think this is on page 22 or so in your book. Can you tell us those 3 questions and how that helps us?
So the 3 questions were given to me by a licensed clinical psychologist. And he said, these are the 3 questions called the friend-to-friend process that everybody should ask themselves. Question number 1, what do I want for me? And the reason that question is so important, Bill, because so many times people focus on everyone else. They take care of everything else, but they neglect themselves. Question number 2 is, what are you feeling about where you are right now? So it's honoring your emotional ability to say, this is how I really feel. And the 3rd question, and this is the question that really invites you to look through the windshield of where you're going instead of the rearview mirror of where you've been. And that question is, what step are you willing to take to get what you want?
So I'm going to repeat that. What do you want? What are you feeling? And what are you doing to get what you want. Did I summarize it correctly?
Yes, sir.
Now, every show I tell our audience, there's usually 2 or 3 takeaways, even if they don't get to read the book or if they forget parts of it. And I think that's something for all of us. We could say to ourselves tomorrow, driving to work, what do I want, both for today in my daily schedule and in life? What am I feeling and what am I doing to get where I'm going? And it might be, I'm thinking that might be some tough questions and pressure us a little bit, but good questions, meaning at the end of it, it'll come out. Am I correct or do I misinterpret?
No, you're spot on, because the book is How Do You Coach Yourself into a Thriving Future? So resilience at work, coaching yourself into a thriving future, is not necessarily me telling you you should do this. It's inviting you to a conversation with yourself to say, I choose to thrive. Now, what do I want?
Now, you mentioned too, and this certainly makes me feel good, and I think to everybody in our audience, everything a person needs to flourish. And I like that word flourish because it covers, it's not just get rich or be romantic or win the lotto. It's all encompassing. So it is inside of ourselves. And can you talk on that? Because that made me feel good when we realized it's still there. And we were told that when we were little. We were told it by either teachers or professors and our parents usually. And now we're hearing from an expert.
Well, for me, that really runs deep, because when I was growing up, my mother and father came to the school because they were about to put me out of the school because they were about to label me as hyperactive, ADHD, all the labels. And my mother said, there is nothing wrong with him. Everything he needs to succeed, it's in him. And this was at 10 years of age. That stayed with me. And what I realized, Bill, what my mother was really saying, whatever happens in life, how do I find the resilience within and move myself forward and not wait for anybody to do anything for me?
Now, how did the teachers react? I'm wondering after that, because did they just say, oh, your mother's a real pain, we're going to have to, work around her, or did they dive in and work with you?
They did, because they realized I had an advocate, and they began to partner together so that I could become a better student. I was a C student at best. I was in the bottom half of the class that made the top half of the class possible. However, they worked with my mother, and then my mother and father helped me to find other ways to learn.
Isn't that a great story? And in fact, I appreciate you sharing with us, because most of us don't want to share negative things about our life. We only tell people, the wonderful things, and we get to think, what's wrong with me? That person succeeds at everything they do, and they don't. Maybe when they butter their toast, they miss the toast, or they can't get the jelly between the peanut butter and the bread or whatever, or they don't hit a good golf shot. But everybody's going to have some problems, and I always love it when one of our guests, who are obviously successful people, etc. By the way, do you ever send them a copy of your book? Do you teach us?
I have.
Did you do that?
Yes.
No, because I think that's inspirational to the teacher too, because it was probably a tougher job, but it worked. And look, part of their career's work was producing a student like yourself, who's now an accomplished author and speaker and radio star, et cetera, et cetera.
Bill, I have to say, I'm here today because a teacher saw something in me that I didn't see in myself. And that was recognized early. So I'm only here because of great teachers in my life.
Well, on behalf of all teachers and someone who started out as a teacher, I think that we thank all of them. And I love it that you go out there and thank them, because these are hardworking people. They don't get the credit for what they deserve. And yet they're forming or misforming, if they're not good, lives that's going to go on for 50 years and having a crucial role in them.
Yes.
A lot of us, I was kidding with you before and how I found my career. But a lot of us look to say, what is my purpose in life? Why am I really here? Is it to be a policeman? Is it to be a manager of a store or a consumer clerk, etc.? In what ways can resilience help us find this purpose?
So I often hear everybody's trying to find their purpose, and I'd like to invite everyone listening to us to let's evolve that and say to ourselves, what problem have we been created to solve? And sometimes, Bill, the problem that we're solving is what's right in front of us. It can be that neighbor next door who needs a ride to their hospital appointment or their doctor's appointment. It could be that person that's trying to go to school that needs some encouragement. What do we do that's right in front of us? So it's not this big, big, big thing out there. It's about little micro moves, micro moments where we just pay attention to what's around us. And before you know it, we've tapped into presence, which leads to purpose. So how do I become present in every moment wherever I show up?
Simon T., before we go further, again, I want to let our audience know that you're listening to The Secrets of Success on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC. I'm your host, Bill Horan. Our guest today is Simon T. Bailey. His book is Resilience at Work. And Simon, again, we're going to ask you, would you tell us the website?
SimonTBailey.com.
And we'll ask you that one more time in the show, and if someone in our audience wants to get that down, we'll give that to you in about another 7 minutes one more time. You say to ask what you're doing to get what you want. How do people really do that? Because I think that's probably hard to get into them. It sounds so simple, but it's good to hear, and if you gave me a speech, I would walk out and I'd be pumped up. But how do they really do that? Do they do that in the morning when they get up, or go to church and meditate, or take a very long walk or a hot shower?
Yeah, so let's give a practical example. Let's say you're working at a job and you want to get a promotion. And so instead of going to the boss and saying, hey, I want to get promoted, how about you start with a paycheck is given to people who show up, but opportunities are given to people who think and work beyond what they're paid to do. So what is it that you can do to think and work beyond just doing what you've been hired to do? And what that does, it's counterintuitive. When you say, what is it that I want? It's really about what value am I willing to add wherever I'm at right now. And as I add value, I ultimately will get what I want.
You know, if I knew this show was going to be this good, I would have told everybody at the beginning to get a pencil and paper, because you really should. This is like, to me, a college course that in business or leadership, etc., where we all should be taking notes. I've scribbled a few things in the margins of my papers here, but I hope for a lot of our listeners, and in fact, right now I'm going to tell them, if you didn't take the time to do this today, you can go to nccradio.org. That's nccradio.org to listen to a podcast of the show. There's no charge. Just scroll down, look for Resilience at Work with our guest, Simon T. Bailey. But the next time you listen to it, take notes, because really the tips you're giving to people, very often, for most of us, it takes a lifetime to learn. And by that time we say, oh, now I'm too old to use them. So we're lucky we're hearing it from you today. Another question you bring up, and I think this is another one of those good sayings, are you waiting for something to happen or making it happen?
So what a lot of listeners don't know is I used to work at Disney. And one of the jobs I had in Disney was to go and work in the parks. So, Bill, I go out into the park, it's hot, it's July, and I'm supposed to engage the guest. So some guests come towards me and they said, you're from Buffalo, New York. I said, yes. They said, what do we do here? And I start sharing, do this, do this. And when I realized Disney didn't hire me to do a job, they hired me to make a moment. And when I had the epiphany that it was about making the moment, that's when I quit my job and I went to work, because the job stands for just over bored. And when you go to work, you begin to say, how do I make something happen instead of waiting for something to happen?
That really is so good. And I think any of us, and I just literally came from Disney myself a few weeks ago, it's just that wonderful place that makes you feel better about everything. And even if something goes wrong, and they seem to try to eliminate every possible thing, or if something is, if you're waiting, they put a roof over your head if it's raining, or an umbrella if the sun is out, so that it can, provide a little shade, or you can go inside the air-conditioned facility to kind of take a break. They seem to know where the problems are going to come up, and that seems like the perfect place for you. And
it was outstanding.
Except it was probably too hot coming from Buffalo. You were probably used to the winter weather there and what comes up there. So you ask people, what is the one thing you need right now to get what you want? What kind of answers do you get when you bring that up to people?
Oh, I need a promotion. I need a breakthrough in business. I need money. I need health, on and on and on. And those are things, those are real. And I don't want to downplay those things. But here's what I've come to learn. When we are in service to others, what we want wants us. But when we choose to give it away and help another without any strings attached, the law of the universe, reciprocity, what goes around comes around. So the thing that you want the most, who can you help? Here's what the research says according to Emory University. When you help someone else, the reward centers in our brain begin to light up, Bill, almost as if we are on the receiving end of the person we just helped. And they call it the helper's high. So if you want to get what you want, you got to choose to be high in helping others.
Are you going to write another book? Because if you are, that's the title, The Helper's High. Seriously, I love that. And when I'm talking to a guest, I'll say almost every other week, someone will come up with a statement or two like you did today. But The Helper's High, if I saw that in the bookstore, I would definitely pick up that book and start thumbing through it to see if it was a possible future show. And I love that. So what's the word you're going to leave us with that we should take from this show today and start to change our lives?
One of the things about resilience is understanding the power of kindness. And I've already kind of alluded to it. But what our world needs right now is kindness, where if we're walking to a public place or somebody coming behind us, if it's not an electronic door, you're stepping on, the door opens. What if you hold the door, or you say good morning, you say good afternoon? This ability to be kind is so underrated. So I believe what builds resilience is when we choose kindness every single day.
I think if we listen to you, we will all be much happier and we will definitely be successful. Simon, once again, I want our audience to know the book is Resilience at Work by our guest, Simon T. Bailey. That's Bailey. And just give us that website one more time.
SimonTBailey.com.
Simon, thanks for being with us today.
Thank you, sir.
You've been listening to The Secrets of Success on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC. I'm your host, Bill Horan, asking you to please join us again next week at the same time when we will continue our journey to success.